Hello and welcome to City Business Uncut. The first episode of the month is where we delve a little bit deeper with a really amazing guest in a raw and honest conversation where nothing is off the table, there's nothing off limits, and there's nothing chopped out afterwards and left on the cutting room floor either. Warts and all, this is the full conversation. Quick intro from me, I'm James Marriott. I run Sound Media, where I help brands and businesses to create podcasts of their own as part of their marketing output. And I'm joined by Stephen Kenwright to co-host City Business Uncut, who is Strategy Director at Ride Shotgun. Right, without further ado, let's get on with City Business Uncut. Hello and welcome to City Business Uncut. We're back, our first episode of 2025. Got to do some scene setting in a minute, and Stephen's here. I might get you to do kind of like the scene setting and describing our surroundings in a minute or two. But welcome, hello.
Hello.
And we have a guest. I don't normally do this. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. But how would you introduce yourself? Because I feel like you're involved with quite a few different things. So how do you describe yourself?
I guess it depends what context I'm in. I usually say my name's Hannah Duraid. I'm a jack of all trades.
A jack of all trades. You have a few.
I wear a few hats.
So tell what are your kind of business interests?
I guess the one where I'm most well known for within Sheffield is the Great Escape game.
Yep.
So we've got 17 escape rooms across the north. Where we're sat today, Gameshow Allstars. It's a game show activity bar in Orchard Square. High Ivy Health, which is a Canadian medtech device. So it's not my business. I'm the UK director of that. And then I guess there's a few side things like the Business Runners, Sheffield Business Paddle. Do a few things.
There's a really kind of childish thing in me that just wants to talk about like game shows for the next 45 minutes and just discuss like what's your favourite ever moment from a game show, what's the best score you've ever got while watching Countdown. I'm not sure that's why people are tuned into this particular podcast. So I'm leaving it to you two guys to keep me on track, right, and make sure that I don't go off on too many tangents talking about like really immature kind of childish stuff. I said we'd kind of set the scene a little bit, and I put you in charge of this, Stephen. Okay. But just talk us through our surroundings.
So we are in Gameshow Allstars in Orchard Square, and we've had a little bit of a thought about whether we should put some lights on. Actually, we decided vibes were the way to go.
Yeah.
And they are good vibes. What we can see around us, so I think usually it's a lot noisier than this, right? What we can see around us is a whole bunch of different games which are representative of, I guess, every game show that you watched when you were a kid, or when I was a kid, definitely the ones that were on. So this is quite exciting, and seeing them in action, I think a little bit later will be quite cool.
I note that so a lot of them kind of look very familiar. For example, we're looking at will you be the fastest contestant first? So there's stuff that is an obvious throwback. For legal reasons, are we allowed to mention the actual game shows that these are, or not, as the case may be, based on?
I'm still waiting for the IP lawyers to come after me.
I think you'll probably be all right. So obviously, kind of, I guess this is the one in front of us is based on the idea of fastest finger first, which is the first bit of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You've got the what's
Say what you see catchphrase.
Say what you see catchphrase, yeah. And then where we were thinking about potentially kind of recording the podcast was within what Countdown inspired.
Correct. Yeah. So we're in the style of so that one's Word Race.
Word Race. How many games altogether are there here? 7
at the moment.
7. And how does this work then? Because I've never come here before, and from the outside, it looks very modest, doesn't it? From the outside, you wouldn't necessarily know when you come up the stairs quite what's going to be in front of you, because as Stephen kind of hinted on, and if you do see any of the clips from the video of this recording, this is like a wonderful neon experience that we're in here. It is very colourful, isn't it? And it does, you use the word vibes, and I think that's really, really accurate. Just tell us a little bit more about Gameshow Allstars.
Sure. So it's a bit of a wonderland, like you say.
Yeah, good description.
So when you arrive, you're given a scorecard, and a little bit like bowling, you put your silly names on top, or your nicknames. and then you compete to see who's going to be the best. So we create you some cards, hand them out to all the players, and then you navigate around the various different games, and hopefully you win. And we have a prize.
It sounds
It's
good.
very competitive.
So does just one team play at a time? Is that the idea?
No. Unlike the Great Escape game, this is a really, not that Great Escape isn't social, but it's a lot more insular. You come with your teams,
Yeah.
and you go into your dedicated space. Whereas here, it's really social. And we encourage that as well. So because it's open air, essentially, I kind of describe it, if I'm ever speaking to somebody on the phone to understand the concept, a little bit like a fairground. So while some of your friends are, I don't know, on Hook a Duck, the other people are on Coconut Shy, for example. So you're in the same vicinity. And it's also kind of meets Crazy Golf because you follow each other on.
Yeah.
But people watch each other, whoop for each other, cheer for each other. And it's really great.
It feels really unique. I love the uniqueness of it. Have you done an escape room before?
I've done the Great Escape in Sheffield, yes, and a couple of others, but that was a good one, I think.
How did you do?
Very well. I'm good at escape rooms.
I was thinking you're the kind of person that I can imagine being really... It's lots of logical thinking and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so when Hannah was saying a little bit earlier, there's a mixture here of a combination of general knowledge and trivia. Yeah, I'm in for that. Physical prowess. And I'm like, oh, you've lost me a little bit. You know, that's maybe not my strong suit at the moment, so... This is a little bit more suitable for everyone, I think. Whereas an escape room where it's like trying to solve some stuff, that's right up my street.
Hannah, tell us a little bit about your journey, because it feels like you're doing something now, or you've created something which is kind of unique, and that's amazing. But I'm intrigued as to where did this all begin?
Mm-hmm. So back in January 2015, prior to that, I'd got a couple of degrees, been travelling, found escape rooms abroad. They were a really high standard. The UK's, what I found when I came back, they weren't up to that standard. I think there was literally a handful. So in the main cities. And I started my second degree at the same time as setting up the Great Escape. And I guess... very naively set it up because I'd worked in lots of hospitality jobs and things alongside university, but I'd never really had a proper full-time job. I'd only done part-time Saturday shifts and stuff like that, so I had no idea what was ahead, and I think that probably helped in many ways. But I got a small building near the train station in Sheffield and maxed that out. It went super well. Everybody loved it because I'd kind of done the standard better than what existed in the UK. Couldn't afford what the Asian market was delivering at the time. Flying by the seat of your pants is the best description. Yeah, and it just scaled. We just scaled really fast. So year one did Sheffield, got 4 rooms there. Year 2 did Leeds, started with 3 rooms. What year I am? 1, 2. Year 3 back to Sheffield because the initial building was going to get knocked down, and then next couple of years expanded the portfolios and created lots more games and lots more experiences. So I don't know, we did pop-up events, Halloween events in basements. Got the Haunted Hound, which is like an around the bar experience to increase the dwell time. We've got AR darts. I don't know, we just pushed the concept of escape rooms a bit further, added in electronics, tested different themes, tested different times, and just pushed away a little bit from the original kind of scope that existed. Because when we first started, there was a handful, and now there's a handful in every city. So it was a fierce market.
I was reading one of the early pieces from when you just started the Great Escape, and I think it was in Insider, saying that you'd thought about starting it in Leeds and then kind of decided to start in Sheffield instead. Is there a reason you thought Sheffield was going to be the best place for it?
So Sheffield's where I'm from. So I think that was probably one of the reasons. I was also at university in Sheffield for two of the degrees, actually. I did some semesters away, right. But fundamentally I was in Sheffield. I got help from, at the time it was called the Enterprise team, in the sense that I rang up the university and I thought maybe they'll be able to help me. And I said, "What? Have you got anything? I'm thinking about setting up a business. Is there anything that you can help me?" And they said, "Yeah, we've got this Enterprise team." And they were great, and I've met people who I'm still in touch with today from there. and they just kind of helped and guided and cheerleaded and promoted us, which was great.
What I took from that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but were you saying you've never really had a job? You never really had a normal, proper job? I'd
had a lot of jobs. Between my universities, for about 5 months, I had 5 jobs at once.
Oh, really?
So I literally did. I can graft. So because I knew I did an art degree, so I did that in Sheffield and France, and then I did a teaching degree. I found that you could do a top-up year, PGCE it's called. I'm sure you probably still do them. And in between that time, before I went travelling, so a few months, I picked up 5 jobs. So I did a school reception job, so I could see the holistic nature of a school. A bit of teaching assistant, football ground. So there you did like bars, events, weddings, so kind of big scale events. I worked at a place called Moran's, like a restaurant in like Totley and Door.
Oh yeah.
And I worked at a nightclub. So I was literally going from job to job to job to job. I did a checkout as well in Morrison's.
Just not bother sleeping for a while?
No, nothing's changed.
So what, you said you did an art degree and then you topped it up with a kind of a year of teaching. What was your intention? What were you planning to do? What did you want to be? I don't want to say what did you want to be when you grow up, but what was the plan at that stage?
I always wanted to, I guess, I described it as I wanted to always excel in what I did. That was the thing. Like, for example, when I said to my parents, they said, you're going to be a teacher. And I said, no, I'm going to be the head teacher. But my plan with the teaching, I love travelling. My plan was to travel the world and teach. And my thinking was somebody always needs a teacher. So I kind of saw the longevity of it.
Do you think so obviously you said you kind of grafted and done lots of kind of perhaps smaller jobs kind of compressed together, but having not kind of gone down the route of a career and then thinking, do you know what, I can do this better, and then setting up your business. So do you view that as being, I don't know, like a good thing? Do you feel more able to do what you do now because of the fact that you've never had that constraints of having a job? I don't know if I phrased that in the right way. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I fundamentally didn't know what I wanted to do, quite seriously. I had no idea. A lot of my friends wanted to be like dentists, doctors, teachers. They knew exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
One of my friends is a geologist over in Australia. She's since when she was a kid, she wanted to do that. I didn't have that. So all I tried to do continuously was bide time. So I knew I'd get a good degree in art because I'm good at it. And I just kind of thought, I'll get that. And it was only £3,000 at the time I did it. So it wasn't like it is today. But I kind of always kept it vague because then I thought, I can narrow down into graphics or interiors or anything, but it'll bide me time. And that was my thinking.
I think that resonates definitely. And the reason I did my second degree at Sheffield, I've got a master's in Shakespeare because of that exact reason. I'm like, graduating, I don't know yet. I don't want to get a proper job. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I kind of did that because it was a way to put off real life. And what I'm interested in, because you had all of that, all the different jobs and then biding your time. When did you feel like committing to this was the right thing to do? How far into the plan? Was it before or was it when you'd started? When did you think, this is definitely like a big potential business?
Straight away, it spiraled out of control. So I came back in the August, played the one in the UK in the August. Straight away after, I started looking for buildings. By the November, I think I was signing for a building. December, I set up the company. January, opened the doors. End of January, I got my first member of staff. I can't explain to you how quickly it went. It was crackers. I think because we'd got at the point where the UK just went. It went wild. It was out of control.
It's kind of like there's something quite sort of fearless about that, isn't there? Just thinking, just do it. It sounds like you didn't even give yourself time to worry about it because you just
there wasn't any
100 miles an hour and got on with it.
Yeah.
Everything you said so far makes me feel like you've got like this kind of like a skill for sort of spotting gaps in the market. Do you think of yourself like that? Is that something that you think of yourself as being good at?
I guess I think a lot of people do that, but I think that I will actually make them happen. I'll actually try to fill in the gaps. Yeah. I've
got written down on my notes to ask you about 3 words: making things happen. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's jumped out as I've got to know you and followed the stuff that you've done. It seems like you are someone that's incredibly good at just making stuff happen. No messing around with it. It's just, Hannah just gets things done. They just happen. Have you always been like that?
I'd say I'm a really good delegator.
How does that work then? So you've obviously got a team, mm-hmm. and how does it work? Do you feel that you're still making like the big day-to-day calls in your businesses, or are you a bit more withdrawn than that now?
No, my team know what they're doing. They're great. I think it's really important, particularly when you're scaling. You have to trust the people who are already in the business. You have to accept that people will become better than you, and that's what you want. That's the aim. I want my teams and my people to be the best versions of themselves, and I want them to love what they do.
I'm interested, are you the sort of person who has do you delegate by default? You have the person that you've brought in to do the job, and you kind of push them out the door and let them get on with it until they mess it up, or does it take a bit of time until you get that trust in them that you're going to start passing on more and more of that responsibility?
It depends on the task, I guess. It's more, I guess, about nurturing somebody so that they feel confident and safe to do things and to make mistakes. I think that's really, really important. Like, I wouldn't just give somebody a huge task that they felt was really overwhelming and it scared them and they didn't feel comfortable. I guess I would empower somebody to be able to do that and equip them with the right skill sets, or the people or the YouTubes that would help. Yeah, and that's important.
How would you describe your leadership style? And I'm aware that sounds very much like a kind of a standard sat doing an interview question, but I'm really interested in exploring this with you. So how would you describe your style of leadership?
I would say calm. I would say very communicative. I don't know if that's even a word. And I think in some senses non-hierarchical. I can't say that.
Hierarchical. I don't know.
Yeah, that word.
Did that come up in your Shakespeare degree?
Yeah.
Hierarchical, I think, is yes. I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Are there any leaders that you, I'm not saying model yourself on, but do you have people that you have had as managers in your many jobs, or as like just people that you really look up to, that you kind of want to model some of those behaviours in your business?
To be honest, I think it would be probably the opposite of behaviours or situations that I've seen that I didn't think were probably handled overly well, and I'd probably think, maybe I won't apply that to my life or my world, probably. And I think that's not necessarily just our leader or our manager. I feel like I gain that from everybody in any kind of walk of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So when you're doing that, I think when you have that kind of idea of you want to do things a little bit differently, I think generally you're quite grounded in certain values and principles, and the way that you do want to do things is quite consistent with a kind of set of guiding principles. Do you have you given much thought to like how what your values are as a leader?
Yeah. Lots of things. So I think, I'm trying to think how to describe them. For example, like vulnerability. I feel like that's really important because it gains, allows for a level of trust. It allows for, I see it as my job to look after my teams of people. Like fundamentally, that's my role. There's of course byproducts of that thing. We create amazing experiences, we create cash, but it's my job to look after my teams of people, whatever that may be. I don't know, it might be something personal, it might be something within work. I genuinely feel like it's my privilege and my duty to do that. So I feel like it sounds a bit funny, I guess, in a work context, but it's important for me to be vulnerable, it's important for my team to be vulnerable, so I can wholeheartedly look after them. What else can I say? I guess that's particularly important. And I'm not saying that, I don't know, it's a bit cliche, don't leave your stuff at the door. Like, I recognise that everybody within my teams are they're people. It's part of, it's not just work. Like, you come to here for so many hours of the week. I saw lots of, and still hear about lots of experiences where, I don't know, they've someone in the office who's hated or ignored or not spoken to. Like, it's awful. I would never allow that. So I create an environment, or aim to create an environment, where actually we do all talk to each other, we do all communicate, we are all kind to each other, and if there's anything other than that, we sit and talk about it and we find out why, because it's not allowed. It's not allowed. Because I don't know. Honestly, some of the arguments and stuff that I hear other businesses have, I think, really, just sounds so childish. Like, we have fun, we have a really great time and a good laugh, and we get the job done whilst doing that. Yeah.
I'd love to know, when you're bringing on new people, because you're expanding so quickly, right? You must be hiring all the time. Mm-hmm. How do you educate the new people that you bring on into that way of being? Because, like you've said, they will probably have had jobs at some point where they've not felt that way. How do you kind of bring that out of them so that they do feel part of the team and get onboarded quickly? So
I now do, I'd say 95% of all interviews. Unless we're rushing and maybe I'm not here or something, I do all the interviews. I think it's one of the most important things, and I think that was a big learning. In the past I didn't, and I think that was a mistake. The person employing somebody is responsible for who you're bringing into the business, and I think it's probably the most important job to do. I'll bring somebody, like, I don't know, say that I'm hiring for here or for the Great Escape. I'll bring somebody who's going to be working with them because it's their team. It's not essentially my direct team. But also, I think it's nice to think, oh gosh, the person who owns it is here in my interview. Wow, they must care about this place. Do you know what I mean? And I think it gives that back as well. I do group interviews. If we think about an operational one, for example, I do group interviews, partly because it's efficient. And then we get about, I don't know, roughly 20 people per round. And I sit there and I say, so it's not just going to take 15 minutes, because that doesn't feel quite right. So I see an interview as a two-way street, because we're not only choosing you, but you're also choosing us. So it's only right that we sit and talk a little bit about what you're getting yourself in for. And it might not be for you. No, we really do that. Yeah. So it takes usually a couple of hours. And I don't tell anyone that it's a group interview. And I say, and if you want to leave, you're more than welcome. I won't be offended. That's okay. We did spring it up on you. But there's reason for that. And we kind of say, because the group interview, you find about us. It gives you time to relax a little bit. Let us do a bit of talking. Find out about the role. Let's find out about one another. And then we'll finish with one-to-ones, because you find in that setting, people will flourish in either or sometimes both.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess you get to know people that little bit quicker, and how they work and whether they really thrive in the situation that you throw them into or don't. Mm-hmm. And you learn a lot about people from that. I'm really interested in this kind of stuff about how you do things and your style, because I've known you for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen Hannah without a smile on your face. Mm-hmm. Like, you always seem to be smiling and happy, and you're always very nicely spoken. You're always very calm. And I think with the different business interests that you've got and doing stuff, there must be stressful stuff happening in your life all the time. And I never get the impression of, oh, Hannah seems to be quite stressed today, or Hannah's not in a very good mood today, or anything like that. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, are you just very good at masking that? Does it just not bother you? Like, I can't imagine you taking someone into a room and giving them a real telling off. Like, does that happen? Is that part of you?
No. So, I don't know. I think I see every situation as it's neutral. Depends how we perceive it or how we deal with it. I've like seriously trained myself to, what's it called, the mastery of calmness. And I usually either have a positive slant on something, or I guess a learning slant. Like every single situation in life, you can approach with that. I don't know, take road rage, for example. I don't have road rage. I think, that person might have, someone might have passed away in the morning. They might be rushing for something. Like, you just have to understand and take a moment just to think why. Yeah, I think every single situation is like that. And I train my team to be like that as well. I think if somebody's doing something malicious, then perhaps let's have a conversation. Let's find out what's making you do that. I think there's always a bigger kind of root cause to something or why somebody's reacting. But yeah, nothing in life's that deep. It's all good fun. Is what it is.
And is that genuine? Is that you 24/7? Like, you don't go home and slam the door and just scream and shout and swear at inanimate objects for 10 minutes just to get it all out. Like, that's genuinely just you all the time.
How lucky am I? Look how lucky I am. Like, I've got these amazing groups of people around me. I've got people who are having fun. We're creating something amazing. Like, what's to be sad about? So nice. I feel so lucky.
I'm blown away because I genuinely believe you. I really believe you. And I've known you for a while, and the fact that, you know, I've never seen anything that makes me doubt what you say. But at the same time, I find it kind of astonishing. I just think anyone that's running a business, building a business, particularly involves, you're managing a lot of people. You've got a lot of people around. You've got a lot of customers around. It's different people every day. It's not like you've got a nice, neat client base that you've built that you get to know well. You've got different people in, different people out. There's people coming here, I guess, who are drinking as well, so you probably get all the kind of things with all that stuff that happens. And if it was me, I'd probably be like, brave face while I'm here, go home, like kick the cat across the room and smash a few things. I'm a bit in awe of that, really. And I genuinely don't know if I've ever come across someone before that seems to have that genuinely calm, I'm going to say leadership style, but it's not. It's just personality style, isn't it? It's just who you are, but all the time. I'm thinking about like bosses that I've had in the past, just people that I know. I don't know if I know anyone that's that calm.
Well, you know me now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It kind of blows me away a little bit. So the flip side to all this, I'm guessing, your staff, the people that work for you, kind of get to know you pretty well, and know, Hannah never gets angry about anything, she doesn't get stressed about anything. What's the risk that then leads to people, kind of, what's the phrase about, you give them a inch and they take a... Yeah.
Because I'm firm but fair. I'm not afraid to sack anyone. Like in COVID, I took us from a team of 53 to a team of 6. One of the best decisions I've ever made.
Wow.
Savage decision, but it needed to happen.
Yeah, that is savage.
Because without a business, there are no jobs. And we are a business as well. And I feel like our rule is we treat each other and people how we want to be treated. And if not, is this the place for you, really? And I think particularly with the dynamics that we work, like a concept like this, you have to work as a team. You can't have someone turning up late all the time. You can't have somebody not pulling the weight because it will affect everybody else, bad apple in the cart. So we'll always give people an opportunity and a conversation because, like I said before, there's usually fundamentally a reason why somebody's making certain decisions in their life. There really is. And that's okay. So it would then be my job to look after them, to try and help work through those things, whatever it might be. And if I can, great, but not always. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I've sat with people and said, listen, mate, is this the right job for you? Like, are you happy here? Do you know, it might not be.
And do they always kind of part on good terms? Are there people out there in the world that have got bad things to say about you, do you think?
I'm sure there is, and that's okay. That's okay. And what I think
I just can't imagine it.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I think if that is the case, because people make their own narratives and things in their heads, I just feel like they won't fundamentally know or remember me as a person. But that's, if they want to remember a certain version that they think, that's all right. Yeah.
I feel like when we had James Biggin from, you know him well because of being in the Business Runners, yeah. Oh, wow, there we go. Yeah. And when he came on the show, we talked on this idea of kind of leadership style, didn't we? And how you manage your team, how you treat your team, how you treat people generally. It's not just about how you manage your team and stuff, is there? And I guess in my head what I'm kind of thinking now is, I don't know, whether coming into this I was thinking, to be a good leader, have you got to have a slightly nasty streak in there? Have you got to have the ability to be a little bit horrible to people? Is that just a prerequisite of becoming a successful person in business. I know that sounds perhaps a bit old-fashioned, but
No, I understand.
I don't know. I'm not saying that's necessarily what I thought, but that's kind of where my brain is now, thinking, actually, are you, if you don't have that slightly ruthless streak in there, is there a point that you might get caught out?
I don't think so. I think there's, and I think I'm going to quote this as Blair ends. I think he quotes Dan Sullivan, but he always says, be ruthless in your actions and kind in your words. You've got to do the hard thing. And when you, like you said, Hannah, right, when you are a business owner, there's a person in front of you that is depending on you, but there may be 100 other people who are depending on you as well. And by giving that person something that you really shouldn't be giving them, you might actually be taking that away from 100 others. So you've got to have, that it feels ruthless when you write it down, but that's actually the kind thing to do. And your job as a leader, in my opinion, is to treat that person respectfully and make sure you're doing the thing in the right way. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing, right? I think it's easy to shout and scream if you are feeling, you've got, like you were saying, that narrative in your mind of this person is just slacking off, or this person's got some kind of problem with me, or whatever it might be, because that's the kind of that may be the first thing that comes to your head, but that's usually not the case. There are reasons. So I think most of the time when you are seeing those leaders with a nasty streak, and like football would be a really good example of this, right? So you think of that Alex Ferguson hairdryer treatment as being a really good example. I think context is quite important. Like, most businesses are not a football locker room. Mm-hmm. And so you shouldn't treat them like one. In that context, it makes sense. It's accepted. It's how it is. But that's not the business that, most people operate in. And the actual action is the same thing. You're basically correcting behavior. You don't have to do that by shouting at people and throwing a boot at them. You can do that as long as it's consistent with the expectations that you've set in any way that feels like the right way to do it in that particular business, I think.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, and this is a definite change of pace from where we've been talking there, but talking about, I guess, kind of health and well-being and, general wellness, because it feels like that's something that's important to you as a person, but kind of comes through in sort of the way that you do things from a business point of view as well.
I think it's good for everybody to be healthy and to be fit, and I think it's not just the obvious benefits, but I think it's much more than that. I think it's the discipline, the consistency, and all the traits that come along with achieving a level of fitness.
Yeah. Business Runners is something we've talked about on the podcast before. I knew it was something we'd get on to talking about today as well, because you're a real kind of key cog in that. And that fairly recently celebrated its first birthday. As we record this, yesterday was the half marathon in Sheffield. I think you said you have, was it 10 people who are members of the Business Runners that did the marathon? You've got merch now, you do social events, there's kind of like a whole network that's sort of built around that. I would probably sum that up as saying that feels like a real community now. I've said this on podcasts in the past, I'm in the WhatsApp group, never actually done a run yet. It's still on the cards. It'll happen at some point.
That you said yes.
But yeah, I in a strange way, I still kind of feel, I'm not going to say I feel part of that community, but I feel very supportive of the people in that community. I will always Brendan's a great example, always posts about it on kind of Tuesday about last night's run, and I will always like those posts because I kind of love it, even though I'm admiring from afar, and I love really supporting that because I do think it's really important. And I think for all of us, like what we do kind of, 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, what we do outside of that and the way we look after ourselves makes a huge difference to how effective we are at that thing that we do. I know I've gone through periods of my life where I've not been as healthy as I am now. I know you've been on a real drive over the last couple of years, haven't you, in terms of your health and stuff like that. And it feels really, it does feel really important. But it's not necessarily something where there's that connection between sort of business and well-being. That feels like something relatively new over the last few years that we've probably kind of put those things together a little bit more. And I don't know where I'm going in terms of an actual question here. Where do you want to see that go now? Because it is a community. You've got a spin-off now with the Sheffield Business Paddle group as well. Where do you want it to go?
I guess still thriving as a community. I think the core of it is people's health. People achieving from literally people have joined who haven't literally exercised in years to now entering races and just really surprising themselves. Like, I think that is insane. Like, that's so good. And just to meet one another. Like, I didn't start running until Sheffield Business Runners. I'd done it at school prior to that. And
I thought you were a really experienced, prolific runner before
running.
then. Really?
I hate running. Yeah.
Wow.
I do it because it's difficult. Because it's something that I genuinely find really challenging. The whole notion of it, it's not like you've got a bike and you've got a piece of equipment that'll push you along. Like, to actually motivate yourself and get your brain into the function of, I don't know, running through pins and needles, running through aching legs, running like you feel like your toenail's going to fall off, like, that's insane. But to get through it is really rewarding. And to do it with a community of people is epic. And I think the nice thing about what we do there is people actually really share business as well. Like, the support is so vast. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, did you go to the comedy last week?
No, I was somewhere else, sadly, so I couldn't be there.
There were so many of us there. It was so great. Yeah,
really that's nice. Awesome. That's awesome. Obviously, being at the Unlimited Awards back end of last year, and there was loads of people there, and there were a couple of people that mentioned on stage about the Business Runners as well. So I think it's brilliant to see that. I guess I've got a question, and you both might have a perspective on this, and this is probably not something that we can decide and resolve within these four walls, but I've long had a question about whether or not, does business do enough to promote well-being and promote kind of getting staff out there and doing things? And I base that perhaps a little bit on Gravitate, because Gravitate, it's in the yard of Gravitate where you start the run every week, and they have kind of various sort of health things and stuff that they do for all their staff, and I think that's brilliant. It's fantastic to see employers really encouraging and giving those opportunities. I wonder generally whether or not, do you feel businesses do that? Do they do enough?
I'd say emotionally we probably do. I think physically, our team do not seem interested, genuinely. So I'll offer, if anyone wants to come to the runners, or we have socials quite a lot throughout the year. We'll usually do an activity, we might go drinking, whatever. We might go to London and go to like research trips and things like that. But if I ever dare suggest that there's any kind of actual fitness, people just kind of avert their eyes.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me.
It's so hard for people. If it's not in your lifestyle and it's not in your day-to-day routine, it's very challenging. Yeah.
And you're exposed. I get that. that. I will by default, I just walk everywhere. I'm like, if it's within walking distance, so anything, unless it's more than like an hour and a half walk, or I'm on I've got the tram here today, which is a bit lazy, but I was on a busy kind of schedule. Otherwise, I'll just walk everywhere.
I love that.
I know people that, rather than walking 20 minutes somewhere, will drive there. And that sort of blows my mind, but I guess I'm in the habit of doing that, and other people are not. So I think what you say is true.
Yeah, I think the fitness-based social activities in a business they've got the same problem as alcohol-based social activities, in that they're not necessarily inclusive, except for the fact that the alcohol-based social activities have become the default and the norm for so long that they're really the one to be replaced. And the fitness stuff coming in more recently, it's not necessarily getting the same degree of support because it's not the norm. But it's the same deal, right? People feel exposed, people feel vulnerable, and you've got to have the right kind of environment where people are comfortable feeling that. You also have with fitness, it's such a broad thing. There's so many different kinds of it. Like, you talk about running a lot, and I'm going to pass on that. But if we were going to go and lift some heavy stuff, then I would be there. And that's my version of fitness, and I'd be quite comfortable with that. Yet, a business is the size of yours, you've got to have such a wide spectrum of things, and people, don't feel comfortable sweating in front of other people. People don't feel, comfortable in those kind of things. So the physical side of things, it's quite hard to get an activity that everyone is up for. And every so often you see some really interesting businesses, and some of them I don't usually do this, but I'm going to talk about the other side of the Pennines for a second. So there's some wonderful leaders like Claire Heaviside, who owns Serotonin, who runs a half marathon to work every day and runs a half marathon back. And you feel like absolutely a machine. But the thing is, when you know that context about her and you start to see the various people in a business, I've signed up for my first Ironman or whatever, I'm like, I get that. I know why, because that is who she is. And Max Hopkinson, who owns Bind, same deal. You know, these kind of people, it's so core and intrinsic to their personality, starts to rub off. I think to your broader question, though, James, about do businesses do enough, I think speaking specifically from a marketing agency context, there's been a real trend over the last few years for business owners who are willing to put a bit of money into something so they don't really have to think about it.
Right.
They're quite comfortable saying, okay, here's the mental health hotline. I'm going to spend a tenner per person per month or whatever to have this mental health hotline so that I don't have to deal with your mental health. And that is helpful for the person who has those issues in some circumstances. But if the business is the root cause of those issues, it's the opposite of helpful.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say, because there's a real groundswell of businesses doing more isn't always coming from a good place. I think sometimes it is, sometimes it's a bit of lip service, and sometimes it's just viewed as they're the table stakes, so I'm going to do it because my competitors do it, so I've got to. So it's really hard to get a real clear picture, and I think that positivity about trying to bring the team, to get them involved in various things and understanding that not everything is for everyone, I think it's a really good step.
But I think now we're talking about it, I feel like I want to find some kind of level where I want to bring my team into some form of fitness. Maybe, I don't know, even like walking, or, I don't know, a small challenge. Like, I feel like I need to now. Now we're talking about it.
It's a really interesting one, because we've kind of alluded to the fact, particularly as a business owner, there's a level of fitness that I'm not saying you have to be fit to own a business, but you've got more longevity, you've got more ability to work and grind, basically, if you feel fit, right? And that's arguably true for a lot of your employees as well. So theoretically, logically, it makes sense. If a business owner, you are investing in the fitness of your people so that they feel more, able to work, basically, then that's got to be a good thing for your business. And I don't necessarily see why people, some businesses ignore it completely.
I'm trying to figure out whether or not this happened or whether I made it up, but I seem to think that there was an agency in Sheffield who offered basically kind of financial incentives to their staff to get fit, to go out and do stuff that I can't remember exactly what it was, but there were rewards, and in some way or another I think they were kind of like financial rewards if they did a certain amount of physical activity in a month or something like that. And I remember whether I either A, heard about it, or B, dreamt it up, and I'm still not entirely sure which of those two things it is, but let's imagine it did happen. And I remember afterwards thinking, I kind of think that's brilliant. And also I'm like, is that a bit controversial? Like, almost sort of like, giving people a real heavy sort of push into doing that. But again, I seem to remember them sort of saying, but it was, if people didn't want to get involved, they just didn't. It didn't. There was no negative effect on them. They just didn't get the benefits of it. So, yeah.
I don't know, but you've got like health insurance like Vitality, right? That you connect to your fitness tracker, and I don't know if what the reward system's like anymore, but I used to a previous agency do 10,000 steps every day and get a cinema ticket. Like every single week you get a nice little incentive, and I think that's one of the decisions when you're a business owner. You look at something like that that's got those nice little rewards, and you look at all the other health insurance options which are just a little bit cheaper. As an opportunity to make a decision. I'm no way affiliated with Vitality, but that feels like a nice thing. That feels like a nice perk, because health insurance is one of those things that for most people, they're like, okay, health insurance, tick, that's something nice, but I'm not going to even look at the paperwork until I actually need it. Whereas if you've got an opportunity to make that a part of actually part of my day-to-day routine is I'm going to do 10,000 steps to get something nice out of it. That feels like a positive step for your business, even though it costs a little bit more money.
It's a lot less daunting than doing half a marathon to work and half a marathon back from work, because that's like
definitely
3 or 4 hours a day. That's mind-blowing. Still can't get my head around that. Hannah, what comes next for you then? What's the plan? You're still young. I don't know how much you can tell us. I'd imagine you've got kind of various different ideas that are knocking around at the moment, but how do you see the next few years and stuff panning out?
So the next few years, we're planning to scale this site. So up first, going to Leeds.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I say that because you never know what's going to happen in life, right? So it's always like this. But yeah, that's the plan.
Is there a wider grand plan in terms of, like, have you got an exit plan figured out? Have you got all that stuff? Is it there?
Not really. I guess my current kind of trajectory is to scale and also to travel, which is what I've been doing for the last few years. It's real nice. Yeah.
I almost don't want to go down this route because I feel like it's quite a long discussion in itself. So how do you balance the running a business against travelling and going out and exploring?
Set myself targets of how long I want to travel or where I want to travel, and I've got lots of systems and policies in place, so that allows me to walk away. I'm not in the operations of the business. I've got trusted people that are who can go into the various, like, looking after the day-to-day, and it's good.
I've got one other question that I want to ask you, and I feel like this is it's not a cruel question, but it's something you might want to take a minute to think about.
It's okay.
Because it could be something big or it could be something really small, but what do you think has been your best ever idea? Might even ask you as well. Might ask Stephen as well.
Oh, best ever idea, that's really difficult. You can go first.
I'm working on the assumption that you're going to go first.
It's because you said best ever what's difficult. Struggling to answer a best ever. I've got lots of great ideas. I've got one in my bag, actually, as a thank you present for you. Let me get it. But it's definitely not a best ever, but it's a nice one. There you go.
Oh,
for you guys. It's an idea. It's a playing card experience that I made a few years ago in lockdown.
Oh, wow. It's called Unspoken.
Yeah. So this was an idea that, well, in lockdown I found that, like you've said earlier, I'm quite positive and upbeat, and for me, all my businesses were just shut overnight, probably gone, who knows. And my mentality was, wow, what a wicked experience I've had, what an opportunity, like I'm so lucky that I've had that. If it's over, it's out of my control, but I feel really blessed. Let's go and enjoy a time where I'm not having to work so much. And that's how I kind of, made cakes and all this kind of stuff. But then I went on a podcast with one of my friends, and I started to speak to different people around Sheffield and businesses, checking in on them, how they are. And everybody was, well, you know what everyone was like: sad, lonely, depressed, suicidal. Friends of friends had committed suicide. And the main thing that I'd seen throughout it all was that every single one of these people weren't talking. So, being the fixer, I was like, what can I do? So this game is a playing card experience that encourages conversation.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So are you delegating this as your best ever idea?
I mean, I can't. That's what came to my head. It's definitely not a best ever idea. It's been nice. Like I basically just gave them out. I did it because I wanted also a little project. So I was like, what can I create in a few weeks? So I think I gave myself a month from start to finish. And then I gave them out, and everyone said, oh my God, this is lovely. I played with my friends who I'd known for like 30 years, and they said, oh my God, this is beautiful. Like, you need to sell it. So I put it on Etsy.
That's
sold
brilliant.
a few. And people were literally contacting me, like saying, I've played with my husband and you've saved our marriage. Like, so nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
quite nice.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. I did have something in my mind, when I asked you that question. Like, not necessarily thinking that you would say it, but so I remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, at Tramlines, and you'd got the spray painted messages on the pavements and stuff around
Biodegradable.
Hillsborough Park, which were based on like song. It must have been last year because some of them were based around like Sir Felix Spectre and people that were playing. And I just remember at the time I saw it and kind of didn't necessarily think that much of it, but then like I noticed because obviously I live in Essex and people were like posting things in Facebook groups saying, have you seen this and stuff like that, because people thinking it was permanent, not realising that it comes off, and I just remember them thinking then, what a great idea that is, like that's genuinely got people talking, and you know, like people that didn't know that you existed now know that you exist. So I'm not necessarily saying, you should pick that as your greatest ever idea, but I just, I thought that was genius. Love that. Love
I have a constant flurry. Another favourite from Tramlines, we did, I don't know how I came up with it, but people always drop money. Well, they don't always drop money, but you would always pick up money, sorry. So I was like, how could we do like a tenner? Because it's, so we did like a £10 on the back. It said £10 off The Great Escape or Gameshow Allstars. And we put them all over like Tesco's and stuff, and they went mad because everyone was trying to pay with these fake tennies. It was genius.
There's not some legal issue there somewhere.
You have to make them a bit bigger.
All right, fair enough. You've had a long time to think about this now, Stephen. What are you gonna pick out as your greatest ever idea?
I'm gonna cop out of this and say ideas. It's hard to determine what the quality of an idea is, right? Because I think if you think about like playing poker, for example, right? You've got a hand in front of you, you've got your cards. Are they good cards or not? Depends entirely on what everyone else has got. And the truth is, like, when you have an idea, just because it doesn't work doesn't mean it's not a good idea. That's quite hard to determine because there's all sorts of elements of luck involved. There's all sorts of timing, right? So I'm going to cop out and say I've had good ideas that have not worked, and I've had bad ideas that have worked brilliantly. And I find it quite hard to determine which one was the best, because you naturally assume that the one that was the best was the one that gave the most success, and that's probably not the case.
Fair enough.
Depends how you define success.
Absolutely.
You make a great politician. Can I ask you a different question then?
Go for it.
What is your favourite Shakespearean passage?
My favourite. So I'm going to say a single line. The one that I just, and this is something that probably won't resonate with Hannah, because the way that I sometimes get up in the morning, the way that I'm going into a particular thing at work or whatever, I once more unto the breach. Sometimes you've just got to be like that, and that's the one that rings around my head all the time.
That's brilliantly dramatic as well. I love that. That's brilliant. I'm not going to ask you for a favourite Shakespearean passage, because that would be cruel. Hannah, thank you. It's been a great chat. We've got about 20 minutes or something before you've got the first team due. So I'm going to let you pick a game for me to take on Stephen when we finish recording and see who wins.
You guys can choose if you want.
Yeah, I'll grudgingly let Stephen kind of braced for defeat in this, but we'll see what happens. And thank you very much. It's been really good to chat. It's been great to find out more about you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much for listening to this episode of Steel City Business. It's been really lovely to have you with us. Now, you know how this works. If you've enjoyed it and you want in on future episodes, then just follow us on your podcast app or on YouTube. The show is very active on LinkedIn. Just search for Steel City Business and come and connect with me as well while you're at it. Big thank you to The Curious for helping make this podcast happen. There's loads more about the show at steelcity.business, and you can get in touch by emailing james@steelcity.business. And hey, if you're in business in Sheffield, then, well, why not put yourself forward as a guest for a future episode? And of course, we're always open for a good chat about how audio marketing could work for your brand. Until next time, thanks for listening.